Thank you very much, guys. Great cast on the day, and I'm joined by the man who always makes us remember what Kazakhs can do, Memento. So congrats on your win, man. You have had quite a long couple of weeks over here in the ULCS, 9 games in total, and you guys had won every first game, but now you finally brought it back to a series. Can you tell me what that means to you as a Giants player?
I mean, it means so much, actually. Like, I'm so happy that we actually won a game. I think it's a curse to win the first game, actually. I think it's better if you lose the first game and just win the next 2, because then you have the momentum.
Yeah, there you go. Well, you broke the curse at least, so
yeah.
Good. But let me talk to you about that Game 2 loss, because that was the time when you guys left Rengar open. You still got your hands on Kazakhs, or your claws, I should say. What is the game plan when you leave Rengar open on red side? Not a lot of teams do that. I
mean, I think that Kazakhs is actually stronger than Rengar, but I kind of misplayed that game, and I think Kazakhs has to actually like fight Rengar before he hits level 6, and you have to like find him in the jungle and actually fight him. In a straight up 1v1, I think Kazakhs wins pretty hard, but I didn't manage to stop him, and Maxwell's Rengar was pretty good as well. But I honestly don't think that Rengar was the problem in the second game. I just feel like Sivir was so annoying, because we couldn't engage on her. She was just mid lane, sitting there like farming. Like, who plays Sivir in 2017? You know, like yeah. And I forgot about Sivir, and I kind of entered that game as well. Like, I went mid lane, I just jumped in and gave Sivir a free kill, and yeah, that just made the game a lot harder. But honestly, I think Rengar is. If it's Rengar versus Kazakhs, it's fine. But if it's Rengar versus something else, then I think you just get like destroyed. So we decided that we wanted a decent jungle matchup instead of just going like a passive jungler.
Right. Well, I mean, you banned the Sivir the next game, so take away some of the problem as well, and your Kazakhs was explosive in game number 3. Last question to you, since you actually have played for both these teams, you were on loan to Roccat for a couple of weeks last split. What is the big difference in the environment being on this Giant squad now?
Well, to be honest, like, we don't really have many experienced players on Giants, and everyone is like really willing to improve, and everyone like works hard, everyone like sits up playing all day, you know, and they just everyone's really open to criticism. And in Roccat, it wasn't the same, you know, because we had more experienced players on Roccat, and it was a lot harder to like improve with them. But honestly, like, when the only bad thing about not having any experienced players is that you can't like learn from them. So it would have been nice if we had like 1 experienced players on our team that we could learn from, and we could just like listen. But now there will be like 4 rookies, or okay, Hassan is not a rookie, but the rest and Knight. So like 3 rookies, we kind of like. We need some time. I think with time, we're going to be really good.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing how it all develops. Thanks again for joining me, Memento. And of course, now that we are all locked up for the week, we're going to send it in to load into the post-game lobby.
Welcome to the post-game lobby, where Deficio and Sheepy, surprise, are joining me to look back on week 2 of the European Spring Split. Good to have you here, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Great to be here. Looking forward to this analyst desk.
Well, let's start with our last match of the week, where Giants were able to triumph over Roccat in a very close series to claim their first win of the split. As we look back on this series, we take a look at how those games unfolded. I think interesting overall how the series played out, and some major moves for both sides.
Yeah, I'm actually a little bit impressed how we could compare the first series to the second series. Like, the very first time when we watched Vitality versus Origin was really interesting to see. More for Giants, for Roccat. Game 1, a relatively clear game plan from both teams, and then I think Game 2 and Game 3, it kind of fizzled out, and the games were very long, and it tended to be more and more messy. And I think still it's really nice to see that both teams having some kind of ideas, with the Nocturne Shen comp Game 1, Game 2 having.
We didn't like that idea.
Yes, it didn't turn out well, but at least they had one.
Yeah, okay.
At least they had one.
That's true. That makes sense. I agree 100%. I think like Game 1 was actually really well played by Giants, but then 2 and 3, it gets hard. Especially when Roccat actually won that game. In Game 2, it was Roccat played well with the Sivir, 100%, but they still made a lot of mistakes, which was what made it very messy, obviously. And then here the last game was a little bit of the same. It became very long as well. I think Giants were the best team. And that's why they also deserve to win, and especially Memento actually played extremely well.
Yeah, of course. Coming into this, Memento was our player of the series, so a standout performance overall coming in from him. There were some hiccups, but really feel like he nailed it.
Jumping into too many team fights, I feel.
Yes. But in the end, jumping into team fights did help him prevail. Now, I want to take a look at one last replay from this third game, as we didn't get a chance to go quite as deep here. And starting this one off, want to move forward into it. You can see exactly what goes on with Foxy here. Get a pause coming up here soon. And gentlemen, I have a question. Analysts, Can you tell me where the carry is in this fight?
Difícil.
Well, Foxy maybe really believes the Reddit hype of 80 carries being useless in 2017, so
I think
he probably hasn't identified the carry.
misjudges it for support. That must be it.
All right,
Yeah.
all right. I can see the confusion there with utility, but let's roll the clip.
What should happen
And
here?
you guys,
What should
tell me
happen?
what happens here.
Wait,
On the
he's
left.
leaving him. Where's he going?
On the left!
He's on left, man!
On the
He's over there! Oh, he jumped the wall instead, and now he's gonna die.
All right.
Well, I guess the carry wasn't really needed.
I think he was looking for the real carry and looked for Rice there. But that was very surprising that he couldn't find the other carry.
It's definitely the first time I've ever seen that. Because at first I was like, oh, it's probably just the support. That's why he doesn't want to, waste time on the support. But then I started seeing the auto attacks flying. I was like, interesting. That's a
And
weird
zooming
support.
in.
All right. Well, it's not all about this series. Going back a couple days, Sheepy.
He, by the way, didn't lose the fight. They lost it anyway.
They would have lost it anyway. We had to point that out because we thought it was a pretty big error and one that was interesting as well. But now looking back on our series, we had Unicorns of Love versus H2K. Big series to kind of be a preview in the middle of the week here, the Winners Series. And Sheepy, how do you feel about your performance in the series overall?
I think that overall how we played the series, like big props first up to the team. I think everybody.
No, it's your performance sheet.
No. I'm very happy how they prepared for this, and that the way that we prepared for it also worked out in the end. So, for example, here having the Ivan Chen combo, and whenever they try to burst somebody down, it actually works out in our favor. We can go for the squishy backline. So, really happy about generally how it worked out.
Yeah, and again, we see some of these very fun combinations you guys built in the draft phase that I find very interesting, and very few teams actually know how to play against it. This game 2 here, where H2K kind of bounced back, the Kazakhs went off, and it was also due to, obviously, the Zac not being able to really pressure in the early game.
There was a
and
tower dive in the top lane.
a tower dive in the top lane that people might have seen on Reddit as well, where Chachi dies to the turret. And there were some things that went wrong early that obviously backfired for you
He
guys.
actually said in the game after that play that it's okay, Oriana got executed, it's not so big deal.
It's not a big deal. Last game, though, I actually really loved the team fights in this.
Yes.
Because I loved watching how well individual members on Unicorns were playing these fights, really knowing how to push it to the limit. And then you watch some of the problems from H2K in terms of like target selection and moving in and out of these fights, because there's always a lot of like 80 carries steps forward to hit, then you got to peel for him a little bit. If he steps back, then you can do other stuff.
And this, overall, just the series, H2K, I think, also performed well. Was really obnoxious to play the last game, but I'm very happy that they stepped out of their base in the end, so we could actually take an open team fight, because sieging was really difficult for us, and I mean, that's, for example, something we'll look into more.
Well, at the end of the day, Unicorns of Love, of course, confident at the top of Group B. But looking over to Group A, we saw another winners matchup coming in between Misfits and G2. Or rather, Giants and Fnatic. I get distracted here.
Almost the same team.
Almost the same. I got excited. So Giants and Fnatic, this is an interesting series, of course, overall. Giants taking the first win here. And I think this was the first big glimmer of hope from Giants.
Yeah, I think this is where kind of we started looking more at Memento, because he was able to be at the right time, at the right point. And I think just what showed Giant in the first game, we would have liked to see more in game 2 and 3, but they really couldn't translate the mid lane and jungle pressure like in game 1, game 2 and 3.
And I think we also saw in this game that after game 1, Fnatic, especially in the solo lanes, started getting a bigger advantage. Good picks for them, but also just individual play. Soaz actually outclassed Flaxis up in the top lane in this series, and Caps consistently won the mid lane against Knight. And that obviously helped Fnatic get early advantages that we especially saw come through here in the last game, where Caps, as you can see on your screen right now, like 6-0 rise. He was just going off left and right, got early turrets down, and was actually able to really snowball the game for Fnatic. Together with Soaz.
Yeah.
Praise to both solo laners.
Yeah, really praised that, because also top lane was Maokai versus Illaoi, and Illaoi was not able to get off, was actually 0-3 in this game. And
Soaz destroyed him.
So yeah, that's actually a matchup that Illaoi is supposed to win, but I guess with the jungle pressure, as well as the individual play 1v1, I think that is just something that we have to give praise over to actually win this matchup. So Fnatic just beating them out piece by piece.
Yeah.
And a lot of individual outplays from Soaz, too. He even said, like, make a montage of how many E's I dodged. The test of spirit. He was clearly very comfortable in that matchup overall, and it worked out for him. But it wasn't just those matches, of course. We played a ton of matches this week, and after week 2 of the LCS, here's how the teams currently stand. Take a look now. G2 Esports, Unicorns of Love, safely at the top. Vitality and Giants rising up. But kind of interesting to see how these have developed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit about this earlier in the day, how We're seeing mainly surprises, I guess, in Group B, where Splice was off to a bit of a slow start losing to H2K, but they have only played 2 series so far. They have a chance to actually tie H2K early on next week. So not enough is decided, week 2, funny enough. But I'm actually happy to see Group A kind of shaking out the way we expected. With G2 still doing well, Misfits, Fnatic being the 2 contenders, and then obviously Giants and Roccat now fighting to try and catch up.
Interesting, too, that Group B has kind of just been, we weren't sure what to expect in the beginning, and that has also held true for so many teams. We didn't expect Unicorns Love, if I'm honest, to be at the top of the table, but working out well for them. H2K doing very well with their new roster. Splice, I think a big surprise that they were struggling there initially.
Yeah, 100%.
I think it was really hard to judge because there are so many roster changes as well going into the split. And especially also for us, I don't judge anyone because we had Samux pick up in Xerxes who were not LCS tested yet. Samux played top lane 2 years ago, but I mean, that's not really a case to be made there. So yeah, I totally understand, but I'm really happy that it also obviously for our own game shaped up to be like this, but also from the work and effort that people put into, I'm actually really proud that this translated into results.
No, it was good to see, but of course, looking towards week 3, we'll be kicking off on Thursday with Unicorns of Love versus Splice. Tell me about that matchup. How are you guys feeling confident?
That's actually exactly the only matchup left for us to play in this group. And I've heard Trashy, I watched the series from us again, and heard Trashy that he felt relatively comfortable or confident seeing how we played and said that we didn't play that convincing. So I'm actually really looking forward to prove him wrong. And it's actually, I think Splice is one of the teams that people have more hopes for. So now that they are tied 1-1, this can maybe be like more of a decider to see if Splice is actually like a really strong team or more of the middle of the pack.
Well, we're going to have to take another look at this later as we approach later in the week. I'm just going to butcher that completely as we end this up here. But later in the series, we're going to take another look at our rookies to watch, trends in the global meta, and the magic behind the Unicorns of Love. If you're watching us in the client, be sure to hit us up at youtube.com/LOLesports for the full-length version of the post-game lobby. All right, after I butchered that, you've just joined.
Finally,
Post-butchering now, as it would turn out, whether you're here live with us on the show or watching the VOD afterwards. Week 1, we highlighted a lot of rookies to watch, and I kind of wanted to check in on that again. And I wanted to start off by talking about the Misfits top laner, Alphari. Coming in, he did take a game off of G2 in the series, and I wanted to kind of gauge your guys' initial impressions of him and then how they compare to what we see now.
I think Alphari is a player where I haven't watched a Misfits game where I felt like he was the reason they lost by any means. I think a lot of times certain players have like off games. I actually think he's been very consistent in what he's been doing. Maybe hasn't been as outstanding as some people would want to see, but I also think with the current tank meta, most of the time you're sitting there on a Maokai, on a Shen or something like that, and you're more enabling your carries to look great. And I think that's one of the reasons Alphari, maybe for some, hasn't been like the solo carry they hope to see. But I think he's been doing great. I think he's consistent. And I think that is the most important thing for a rookie, honestly, that he's able to consistently do just his job.
And that's exactly the point. He is a rookie, and people shouldn't forget that. So even when he was hyped up before and like overpromised that he's going to be the absolutely outstanding, he was playing champions that are, maybe it's also not the meta right now to absolutely shine over topside, but he is always providing something for the team. And I think he's been doing really well, especially considering, once again, he's a rookie for the EU LCS. So yeah, big props to him. I think he definitely showed how good he is right now.
And I love the Kennen game as well. Like, it just shows confidence in the style he wants to play. Yes, you can argue the draft, but him on the Kennen, he was such a huge part of them winning that game, where in the end they had the time casualty into the base. But he was the man setting that up first by having some really good split pushes.
So do you think that if we move to a more carry-shifted meta, that he'll still be able to succeed? Shine more even? And
I think he will shine more.
Do you think in the current meta that even with tanks that he has the potential to carry games, that there could have been more that we could see from him? Or is this just, we expect tanks to, as you said, allow carry shine? Is there any room for a tank to sort of solo carry a game?
I mean, there's always room to solo carry. I just feel like it's not why you pick a tank. It is really to set up the rest of your team composition, which is why certain top laners, prefer the more carry style because they can shine. You play around them. It's not often you see the jungler put all his focus on a Maokai lane. But if it's a Jace instead, the jungler wants to be there. He wants to set him up to win that lane, take the tower, so he can start roaming. So obviously, if Alphari can get to play carries, he will have a bigger impact. But so far, again, on these tanks, I think he's actually doing a fine job.
Well, as you mentioned, consistency is king, and our next rookie to watch hasn't been quite as consistent, although he has put up some huge numbers. It is, of course, Caps coming in from Fnatic. Pretty solid across the board, only 1 or 2 rough games and some sick plays on the Syndra and Rise.
This guy is extremely mechanically skilled. I think with more and more time, he will be even better. I mean, hyped already as Baby Faker game 1. Maybe there was a little bit...
We killed that one already. People hate that narrative now.
Okay, that was maybe a little bit overhyped, but as well from watching from the scrims that we've played, whenever we do like a huge outplay, we always compare it to would Caps do the same. So I think Caps right now is standing in a really good spot right now where he is. I think he's extremely talented, and I'm really looking forward how he will develop in the next weeks.
Yeah, and I think he has so many cool opportunities in front of him, and I think he has all the help he needs because, again, the players around him have played so many games, so many seasons in the LCS already, and he's the man that everyone is kind of looking at, and they're actually setting him up to carry as well. He's not just being put on some boring, I don't know, Karma mid or something, even though no one plays it in just like utility. No, he's actually like, here you go, here's a Rise. We're going to camp that lane. You're going to get that first spot. And then you, rookie, 17 years old, you're going to make the big calls to win the game with ultis. You're going to be the man roaming around. And I respect that a lot from Fnatic because the man is good. You just need to guide him.
I think that's super brave. Do you think if this wasn't the start of the season, if this was later, more towards playoff, that they'd make the same investments? Or do you think they'd still kind of pull back and make the safe bet on Caps and put him on, I mean, not Karma, but whatever low-tier utility.
Couldn't find anything that reminds me of
right
Lulu
now.
Karma mid or something.
Talia maybe just mostly pushes waves early. I don't know. The equivalent of the Karma mid, the kind of the safe pick, the backline pick that you're not too worried about.
They wanted this man early. They knew how good he was. Obviously, we should assume from scrims that he's doing really well. And I think you just keep letting him play the kind of carries he wants to play, and you set him up to succeed.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Just needs experience. Let's see how it goes in the next weekend. This is definitely a rookie to watch out how he will progress.
But it's like an Exile story from last split in that sense, because Exile came in and you very early were like, oh, you want to play LeBlanc? You want to play Yasuo? Here you go, my friend.
Yes.
Yasuo then kind of went downhill.
LeBlanc, a lot of it didn't work out.
And then Sheepy pulled back. He's like, no.
Okay, get Anivia, a little bit Victor. Play Victor. Admittedly, the Victor was good.
And Vladimir as well.
Okay, let's not forget Vladimir.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, a lot of safe champs in the meta currently. I wanted to get your thoughts. You guys will, of course, play the Cross group in weeks 4 through 6. So I was interested, are you guys at all nervous about the Caps mid matchup for Exile, or do you feel pretty confident in Exile's ability?
Pretty confident, of course. I think that Exile, whatever will be the meta and whatever will be the patch, he is very hardworking. He's always looking for precise trades and how precisely everything is working. It's not just like, okay, here, things just didn't work out. He's hardworking, and I think this is exactly how you should approach right now as a laner. Invest a lot of time, exactly see how are things interacting, how did he get an advantage, copy, improve, think ahead, and then always execute in the scrims.
We had him actually on the analyst desk, and one of the really cool things he highlighted about mid laners right now is like the two main things you look at is there's the mechanics, which obviously is very, very important, but there's also the understanding of matchups. Because you can have the best mechanics in the world, but if you misplay the matchup because you don't know when to trade, when your champion is actually stronger than the other champion, those mechanics will most of the time not actually help you, and you will still end up losing lane. And he highlighted like putting a lot of focus, especially on really understanding when is my champion, is it level 3, is it level 4, 5, that I can win the trade against this guy. And that helps when you then also have some good skills to back it up.
Of course, intelligent play and experience coming in from Exile, too, will no longer be the rookie in that matchup, so interested to see. But, of course, Unicorns love every split. You guys managed to grab a couple new rookies, and another one on our list to watch is, of course, Cersei. Oddball picks, I think it's safe to say, coming out. Ivern now a standard here, but the Rumble not quite as expected in the jungle. And additionally, Zac was the big question mark for so many people.
Yeah, I think Sharksa is somebody who came in, and I didn't really know what to expect. Chacho was basically playing with him on solo queue and duo queuing just a little bit before. And he has been extremely strong in the Turkish league.
Yeah,
and
he's a champion.
Yes, and won there as well. I couldn't go further because he was too young, but he's been performing extremely well. He's very innovative, he's hardworking, he wants to do a lot. And I think with the right guidance and with the right mentality, which he is displaying so far, I think he can go really far. And yes, I'm very happy and feel very grateful that I can also learn from him because he has really innovative ideas. And if I can just take a bit away from that and we can work towards something solid, then you can see the results we're having right now.
And I'm really, really happy this guy actually landed on the Unicorns of Love out of any team in the EU LCS. I know I'm going to say a lot of nice stuff here, so please bear with me.
Okay.
Because Unicorns of Love is a team, and Shippy is a coach, who's always allowed the players to have a say in what are we supposed to play. And they're not just like running with what is the meta, what is LCK playing, and then we will play that every game. And a lot of other teams in Europe are doing that. They're like, okay, so we know Kha'Zix and Rek'Sai and like Elise or whatever, these are the picks we want right here. So our junglers should play those. No, Unicorns of Love has always said, Zach, is that something? Okay, let's try it. Let's see how can it work. What do you want our team comp to look like to make this pick work for you? And it can happen with Rumble, Jungle, and so on. So I think Xerxes, who's very innovative jungler, as you highlighted, can really shine on Unicorns of Love more than he would on other teams because here he's allowed to actually play some of his unique picks.
Well, I think it's really interesting. Shibi, I kind of want to talk to you about the team environment that you've fostered because you've successfully scouted now 2 seasons running, right? Picking up Exile last season, you put a lot of faith in Veritas, of course. He's left now, but he'd improved significantly as an AD carry. I want to know a little bit more behind the process when you're finding new talent. Where do you get the confidence to kind of pick up new guys with so little experience, and how do you tell that they have that potential to kind of be great or to be LCS caliber?
First up, I have like a really great team behind me. So with Chachi, Exile, and Hylissang. Okay, before we didn't have Exile. But with Chachi and Hylissang behind me, also Roma. They have really great advice, really great game understanding, great mentors and guides. So I learned a lot from them, and they learned hopefully a lot also from me. And if we are looking for new players, generally we are talking a lot with them. We're trying to understand really what they are thinking, because the main idea really is how smart are they about the game, how intelligent are they approaching the game, and can they translate this actually into results? And because it can be a great idea, Zach, man, this sounds really good, but if it actually doesn't work, but in this case, it actually worked. So yeah, once we start figuring out what kind of players we are looking for, we invest a lot of time. I think for Exile, it went relatively short term, but we have been looking for like 2 months or so. So I think we're just investing a lot of time. We're really taking care. We have great people. I have great people to work with to develop talent. And I think just this is kind of the chemistry that is needed, and that makes it so successful.
And we see all that hard work now really work for the Unicorns of Love, obviously being first place in Group B. And yesterday, when you guys were playing, it sparked a big discussion as well regarding like meta, like is Unicorns of Love playing meta? Are they not playing meta? You know, how should we look at this pick and ban phase? And I think that's where it's really interesting to look at the champions being played. Most of them are standard champions. There are the odd ones like the Zac that no one else is really playing at the moment, but they're still playing a lot of the standard stuff. The way I look at it, and I would love to hear your opinion on this, is the way you guys are breaking the meta is more in terms of when you're picking certain things in the pick and ban phase. Like you sometimes will pick like a Poppy very early against like the Rengar as an example. The champions you're giving to the enemy team as well, like you're handing them what a lot of people consider dream compositions in the current meta. And also then the way you guys actually craft the comps together, like the way you put it together, being like, oh, if you want Iron and Thresh, that's a combination not a lot of people use, but there's a lot of ways you can change CC there, like combo CC. There's shield from one guy into a lancer from another guy to pull someone out. Like, I think that's very unique. And that's where I think you guys are breaking the meta in that sense, just how you're actually picking certain things and how you put them together.
Yeah, and I'm happy that, you know, as well when I watched the pick and ban, that's kind of the approach that you were going over in the pick and bans, and that's actually how we are doing it as well. We just want to win. Really, and
that's a good thing. Good thing.
Yes, and this is, we're not like trying to be innovative just for the sake of being innovative. We actually think this is a winning method, and I mean, so far it's been working out. We're only 3 weeks in, 2 weeks in actually. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so yeah, basically when we're trying to figure out the new picks and we are setting up our priority list, and it looks different than other teams, then we're just testing it out in scrims. We're really looking how intricate are the connections between the champions. Is it working out? What can happen? And I think maybe we have a very unique view, but I think it's very much around the people in our team. And I think because they're smart, which I truly believe so, we are able to actually translate that to having an advantage.
Well, I'm curious now, too. We've kind of heard about the strategy behind picks and bans, a little bit about how you research. But what has really changed over the years for Unicorns? Is it just finding the right talent now? What has allowed you guys to kind of to rise up? Because there was a long time where you were considered a mid-tier team and you guys struggled to make playoffs. But now it feels like you're consistently battling at the top. And so what was really the big difference for you guys as you moved through the years of LCS?
I think it's mainly experience and work. I've been very lucky with the people I could work with, and I think also with the other people in our team who could they work with. I learned a lot about macro game when we had Horror, for example, in our team, and I tried always to slowly listen more to the players because they have invested a lot and see their point of view. And by combining every point of view from every player that we have and trying to transmit that to every other player in the team as well. We could slowly build our foundation where people are very smart about what they want to do and seeing what works and what doesn't work. And I think this is kind of the winning recipe. I learned also a lot about macro game from Steelbeck, for example, when he was on our team. And we just took that and said, okay, this is a way we can play the game. And let's keep focusing on that. How are other people doing it? And yeah, in the end, I think just by the amount that we grew up, I think, or just learned, this is now like a foundation for this is how you are supposed to play the game. This is where we are right now. And from there on out, we can just improve.
And I think everyone can then start like bringing up the big debate of Unicorns of Love versus SKT, will this style work? And probably not, that's a fairly safe one. But the thing is, for Unicorns of Love and for every team in the West at the moment, you're not trying to beat SKT. So by just picking compositions that actually work really well for your specific players and the style you want to play, that should actually get you far enough when it comes to beating teams in your own region. Because let's be honest, like most teams in Europe, they make a ton of mistakes. And if you can draft a comp, like I'm thinking back to the H2K one with the Katarina, with Iron, with Thresh and these picks here. If H2K in a team fight made a mistake and lost track of where Exile was just for a moment, they had 4 squishy members. And if one of them stepped too far forward, boom, Katarina will kill you instantly. And she will get 500 shields, you can't take her down. She gets resets and she jumps around. And that's a comp, again, that is so hard to play against. And if you are SKT level and you can like perfect these team fights, you can probably beat that pretty easily. But these teams won't do that. So I actually like seeing more and more teams now just kind of build around what are we facing in our own region. We don't need to just follow the meta purely. We can pick champions we think work against people who will overextend and make mistakes, which happens all the time here.
I just want to give some insight in how we're thinking. Maybe that's like the case for other teams, but since we're also going to Katowice, we are actually looking to become better and better. I don't know if the goal is like beat SKT because that's like very ambiguous and it's very hard to define like this is how you beat SKT. Here's the
if you know, I'm sure a lot of teams would like
exactly.
to know that.
But that's like extremely difficult. But we're not building for the sake of it's EU West. They will do a lot of mistakes. I mean, there's some notion that usually people tend to play a little bit more safely, and I mean that's something you can take a bit into consideration. But we're not trying to build a team synergy or a team idea or a game idea around EU West. We're really trying to win the game. So maybe we're not doing that so well. We have not been punished like correctly. Like I've heard the debate that, for example, when we pick Thresh, we should just lose bot lane right away. And Hilly was actually taking that into consideration when he was talking about the pick that this could happen. But there are still ways to work around it. We just set ourselves up for a very high chance where we know we can win the game in this specific way. Probably there are other ways, and if we are scrimming other teams, we will learn from that. But really, for us, it's just winning the game, trying to play the game as good as possible, and being smart about it. And yeah, maybe it catches a lot of people off guard, and that's why we've not been punished yet.
It works for now.
But that's why in the future, we have more games, and specifically Splice. Let's see how they will do against us.
So I'm curious, Fishy, on the subject of international pick ban, you brought up like kind of, I don't want to say blindly following, what we see in Korea, but the kind of aspiring to have the quote unquote perfect pick ban where you pick S tiers in every role. And I'm curious what the line is between player comfort or figuring out how to execute or giving up those small weaknesses and picking the most powerful comp possible. Like at what point are we going to see crazy personal picks? At what point is it like unacceptable? What is the line here for you?
Oh, I think it's hard to say. I obviously understand a lot of teams are looking to like the top teams around the world and saying, what are you picking? What are you, like, how do you draft specifically? Like, what do you first pick? Okay, it's Malzahar in the LCK very often. Some European teams tried to do that here this week, and not all of them actually worked out. Some Malzahar players were actually misplaying very hard as well. And then it loses a bit of value. Yes, I know SKT is doing it, but if you're a Malzahar player or if your team is not playing around the Malzahar as effectively, it obviously is not as strong. So I think it makes a lot of sense that you want to draft. Like, there's always S tiers, there's always A tier picks, there's always picks that just are like better than other picks.
Just the stats are better. I mean,
yeah, the stats are just better.
Yes, it's just from the game on, it's better. But how you utilize them is actually what's really important, and what weaknesses they have. So if you have, like, for example, Varus Zyra, which is considered like really, really strong right now, they're mobile. So you can like start working around this. That's why catch comms with far range are pretty good against them. So there are ideas to play around those champions that have like really strong stats, for example, but lack in other points. So I think this is something I would like to see more as well.
And it kind of like the idea kind of came up when I was watching Origin play actually with Hiva specifically, and they would like very early on pick his Zyra very often. And Hiva, like, this is actually not a criticism on Hiva as a player, because normally when he's playing tanks in EU CS, he's actually been very, very effective. He's been very strong, especially on something like Alistar. But he would get this very early Zyra pick, they would put priority on it and lose other picks in the draft to get that one. And then in the game, you would see that performance on the champion actually wasn't good enough to warrant it, despite the champion being so strong. And that's where, in a way, I want to see like a team who's not fighting for first place in Europe, who's not fighting for international glory, say, actually, our player, is he in fact better if we just play tanks? Do we have to find a way around this, bite the bullet, and have him on Alistar? Yes, he might lose the lane in one game, but then the next game he might actually go off because he's so good on this champion compared to the rest. And then in that way, you have to ignore the meta a little bit and try and play around it. But it is very difficult, also and from scrims, because if you are getting beaten in lane, it's obviously very
it feels
hard.
like, once again, now we're drawing a line, right? At what point are you looking more long-term and saying, these are the champs you need to be playing, these are the champs you need to be good at, as opposed to saying, okay, realistically, these are the champs you're good at right now? I mean, can teams afford to try, maybe in these first early weeks, to try to pick more Zyra, to try to go for more things? And then as we approach later in the season and each game starts to mean more and more, do we then expect to see, in Hiva's case, more Alistar and more comfort coming out? Or maybe he's now developed more skill on the Zyra pick?
I think this is how it's supposed to be. I think you should play the meta champions. Like, let's say the enemy leaves open a LeBlanc and the stats are just extremely strong.
You have to take it.
And you can just double chain somebody 4 seconds root, and then you have like DPS follow-up jungle. Against like anything immobile right now, which is played in mid lane, you just gotta play this champion. Okay, so that's really important that you build up on this. But if you do the pick and ban phase and you're actually banning out a very certain champion group, and you build up a weakness, like once again immobility for support, mid lane, and ADC is something that comes up, then you can actually capitalize on that. And I think this is, if people start pick and banning more like this, it will be way more interesting, because we can see more strongly catered team comes towards like a specific goal, how to counter the enemy instead of just building yourself a strong team comp.
Yeah, it's just so hard, because ideally every single pro player can play all the top picks in his role, ideally. And then you can draft these dream compositions where you get all the S tiers. And like if people leave open LeBlanc, you pick LeBlanc like we saw Power Weevil do yesterday. GG were kind of baiting him into it, being like, can you perform on this champion?
And then he's like, yes.
He picked it, he went 5-0 pretty quickly, and they're like, all right, we're going to ban it now. So they tried to test if he was good enough on the pick, and I respect trying at least to see if he is, because it's a BO3, you can afford losing one game. But yeah, ideally everyone can play all the S tiers so you can pick them. But I think if you can't, you have to find ways around it, and it's not just picking the same champion over and over and you're losing on, because you have to pick it so early to get in the draft, and that's where some teams can fall short.
Well, for me, I'm curious to see how this develops, how teams are going to approach the strategy, and if we'll start to see teams shift away from kind of, I don't want to say blindly picking S tiers, but kind of conforming to what is S tier and always, I guess, picking it when they feel it's available.
And developing your own style, like the things that you consider are strong and you really can make work. I think this is like the most important, because you see, for example, Faker picking the Ryze in the World Championship. Nobody else picked it up. You see Pawn on Victor. Suddenly it seems like super broken.
Yep.
So I honestly believe there's like more champions that, if you intricately understand how they are working, can be meta and are not played right now. And I think people are looking out for this. And yeah, the more the weeks are coming, I think we see that more.
Just ask yourself, is your player on this champion still S tier? If not, well, then suddenly the value goes down on it. Because if he's not able to perform perfectly on a Zyra, well, then Zyra is not as strong as you wanted her to be.
And more importantly, what does he think?
Yeah, so kind of adjusting between what you view as the international tier list and realizing your own weakness and personal ability, or the strengths and weaknesses of your team. Well, I mean, this has been super interesting, and I'm kind of hoping that this is how it starts to develop now, because, of course, everyone would love to see new and exciting team comps. But looking at the games that we've already seen, of course, we've been awarding Player of the Series throughout each and every one of our series thus far. So let's take a look at how that has been stacking up, how the leaderboard has been forming up here. And already you're seeing a tie at the top. Hylissang, Ignar, Jankos, and Sven.
Always in the start. So hard to...
Four very strong players. Chachi's there as well, so looking pretty solid.
Yeah, I think that just like from the winning teams, obviously they're in the top, but I think that Ignar showed a lot of carry potential. Jankos is somebody like this. Sven always consistently. Hylissang is also kind of the playmaker, so he makes games.
It's some big players up there right now. Hylissang will have the games where you go like, holy moly, that was the sickest engage, and then the next game you're like, ooh, that was kind of overextended. And Ignar actually will do exactly the same. So it's fun to see these supports getting rewarded because they will have some of these good games, and that's kind of the reward you get for the high risk they sometimes take.
Yes, but once again, like I think this kind of lists are really nice to look at, because if you go like hashtag LCS big plays, those are probably the names that are gonna pop up. But behind the scenes, if you play a Shen, probably right now more the supports and like jungle and mid lane can make the plays. And once the meta shifts again, you might have a totally different list with other people playing like, I don't know, Irelia top, Jax top, Master Yi jungle, and so on.
We want to
so
see that.
Yes. We definitely do. I mean, we mentioned Alfari early. We have a lot of carry on Cabo Chard. You got a lot of people who want to play those carry top laners, but guys, everyone wants to play it. I want to play it. I would love for tank meta to go away. But with week 2 here all wrapped up, it's time to log off. So thank you, Sheepy. Thank you, Deficio. And our coverage of the EU LCS will continue on Thursday at 5 p.m. Central European Time, 8 a.m. Pacific Time. So we'll see you all then. From all of us on the broadcast team, thank you for joining us, and have a good night.
Joko, he's going to be bringing Cabo Chard. Nahun does get an ultimate off, but is not even needing Cabo Chard. They're going to be able to take this tower, and no response from Origin.
Maybe fight, maybe not fight, I don't know.
He stays alive, Wisdom following. He just needs a shot. Steelback's dancing and dodging from everything, and Origin just can't get him. Now Wisdom finally picks him up off screen, taking out Tab. The rest of Origin completely evaporating before our eyes as Joko on a rampage. Can Cabo Chard get away from this one? It doesn't look like it. A triple kill for Tab. And just like that, it's 4 for 1. Steelback hits a kill. That's going to be 4 for 2.
It maybe ends the game. Oh, I don't think. Yeah, maybe.
Is it enough? There's a double for Cabo Chard. They're cleaning house. Wisdom and Tab, the last members standing.
Coming down while all that's going on. Somehow Betsy died. Flaxisha teleported in. Knight surfs on the Weaver's ball.
It's gone
this
horribly
is
wrong.
horrible for Roccat. 3 kills so far. They're diving for 4. They're looking for a 10-minute ace. Eats another arrow. Are you hungry, son? Because you're eating everything. Axlor's caught. Betsy eats an arrow. And Giants scream, are you not entertained? Liza comes down, flash engage onto Fuxy. He flashes away defensively. The Roccat squad is split. There's so much damage that he's not on Baron. Fuxy, he's used the hourglass 12.
Nice!
Stolen! It's stolen! Again! Another Baron steal! The Nexus is left exposed. Roccat win the first game of Spring 2017.
Showing Zyra in the laning phase.
Oh, shenanigans!
In the
shenanigans! I love shenanigans! One did is dead! One did is dead! They've got him for first blood! Alright, Strangle Thorns is available but not needed. Betsy gonna get cut down. Take down Nexus turret number 1. Elation screams across their faces. And Giants pick up their first win of the Spring Split.